Well, hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's me, Jermaine, and I'm back with another Simple Truth News update. This just in. It came in over the news wire just a few days ago in regards to the attack on the Second Amendment with the UN Global Gun Treaty that we talked about, the arms treaty. Well, first and foremost, it was supposed to come to a vote on the 27th. An arrangement was supposed to be made. However, the United States has asked for more time to be able to discuss this. There are some senators that are putting up a stone wall when it comes to allowing this to happen. Now, what I want you to focus on, I'm going to share with you from Fox News a few reports about this. Mainstream media now is beginning to open their eyes and beginning to share with the public a little bit more truth and less smokescreen. And what is starting to happen is when you hear people in support of this treaty, the biggest thing that they want to make a point of is the fact that it is about arms being traded around the world. Well, I want to share with you and let you know, ladies and gentlemen, that is a very, very slippery slope. The moment they do something and it is signed away by the powers to be, that slippery slope starts to go downhill, and before you know it, there's power put into the hands of those that would rather us not be armed as a public and as a people. The other thing I want you to also pay attention to is pay attention to the panel discussion that is had here in these interviews, and the discussion about how it is awful ironic how this vote has come up about this UN arms treaty, gun treaty, right after the Colorado shooting, the massacre that happened in Aurora, Colorado. I want to share with you these stories, and I want you to take a look, and then we'll be back.
Well, time's up, and for now, there is no deal to end a global standoff over guns. We've just learned the U.S. is asking for more time to consider a United Nations treaty to crack down on illegal weapons dealers. Supporters say it will save lives, but dozens of American lawmakers are threatening to block the treaty, warning it could affect gun rights here in the U.S. A bipartisan group of 51 U.S. senators sent a letter to President Obama and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, writing, quote, "The constitutional protection of these individual freedoms must not be infringed, and we will oppose the ratification of any arms trade treaty that falls short of this standard." The Fox Report's chief correspondent Jonathan Hunt live at the UN. Jonathan, the deadline to cut a deal was today, so what happened?
Yeah, the deal fell apart just in the last hour or so, John, and we are just hearing that the United States was among the nations who said they are not ready yet to vote on this treaty, and that is why it has been delayed. Russia, another of the nations that said no, not right now. Cuba and Venezuela also joining the US and Russia in saying we need more time. Supporters of this treaty are very disappointed, even angry. They say the treaty is needed to stop illegal weapons getting to terrorist groups and regimes like that of President Assad in Syria, which continues to murder Syrian civilians. And they say this treaty is needed now. Listen.
The international trade in weapons at the moment has many loopholes. There are national systems, some of which are very strong, but globally there isn't a standard that everybody shares. This treaty is trying to bring all of that together and make sure that when governments are considering whether to export a shipment of weapons, do they know whether it's going to go to someone who's going to use it to commit serious human rights abuses?
It appears now that a vote on this treaty might not come until the fall, possibly even until after the US election. That timing in itself may, of course, be significant, John.
So if this is about weapons trafficking, why are some Americans so worried?
Well, individual gun owners in the United States, a lot of senators and congressmen, and of course the National Rifle Association believe that this is the beginning of a slippery slope. While it may not be aimed at individual gun owners, that is the effect it would have, making it harder for those individuals to get the weapons they are allowed under the U.S. Constitution. Here's one of the senators who signed that letter to President Obama and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Listen.
We're not going to agree to anything that impedes upon the Second Amendment rights of U.S. citizens, but an agreement ought to include some basic things, and one of them ought to be recognizing the value of self-defense, the use of firearms for hunting and other recreational activities.
And when this eventually does come up for a vote again, this UN treaty, it will certainly have the same political ramifications, the same political arguments surrounding it, John.
Jonathan Hunt at the UN. Thank you.
It's an attack on our constitutional rights. The Second Amendment is constantly under attack. We're looking for a global gun control limitations. Are you kidding me? And when you're the strongest player at the table in the world, when you're the strongest defender of freedom and individual rights, you don't put yourself in a position to relinquish that role.
We all know that that's a right that's protected well in the United States. The Arms Trade Treaty is about stopping weapons getting into the wrong hands internationally.
Well, this UN arms treaty is really raising some eyebrows in gun control. Gun rights advocates are fearing that it is really going to impinge on their Second Amendment rights. Basically, a draft of this is being negotiated at the United Nations, and it's meant to stop illicit trade in conventional weapons, a list of weapons. But what does it mean for gun control here in the U.S.? We're back with the panel. Tucker, are there legitimate concerns as this thing is being negotiated about the Second Amendment here?
Well, there are legitimate concerns. As a non-constitutional scholar, I'm not sure I can speak to the Second Amendment precisely, but I can say that any arms control treaty in which Iran has a leadership role, ludicrous almost prima facie, I would say. I do think, not to deflate this, but the one effective conservative lobby in Washington is the NRA. I mean, you think of I'm sorry to say it out loud, but it's true. I've watched this for 20 years. Taxes, abortion, family issues, growth of government, foreign policy. They've had hits or misses from the conservative side. But the protection of the Second Amendment is enshrined thanks to the work of the NRA. And I don't think there's any chance, I'd bet my house, that this will not be ratified by the Senate. And it does not get American sign-on. Yeah, it wouldn't be ratified. The votes wouldn't be there, Liz. And plus, isn't it true that the Constitution trumps some international treaty? But why is the administration so anxious to sign on to this? Well, it's not totally clear what's going to happen going forward, because it's kind of unusual timing that this should happen to be coming up right after the Aurora shootings, when suddenly gun control as an issue has been brought back to the forefront of the national discussion. Not that anyone thinks new gun control laws are going to be passed in the U.S., but it hadn't been discussed at all for a long time. And just when the topic comes up again, it's just kind of ironic that that's also when this treaty happens to be negotiated. There's this weird sentiment among that the NRA, I think, to some extent, has been pushing, that President Obama is, in favor of stronger gun control measures and has this plan to kind of pass all these things once he gets into his second term. So far, President Obama has done nothing on gun control. In fact, gun control advocates are very, very unhappy with what the president has done during his first term in office. And even in the wake of Aurora, the statements coming out of the White House were incredibly measured and basically saying, yes, we don't think that the assault weapons ban has any chance of coming back, and we would like to work with existing laws. So there's no indication that this president has some grand scheme to get new gun control measures through domestically. What about this treaty?
Look, like all these other treaties that we have pursued and that liberals are intent on getting, worldwide universal arms control treaties, on chemical, biological, nuclear proliferation treaties, they're either worthless or they're a negative. And the reason is that they have only a single effect. On the good guys, on the civilized countries who signed it, they will abide by it, but you don't have to worry about those kinds of countries anyway. The ones you worry about are the rogue states who sign it or even don't sign it and break the rules willy-nilly with impunity. We see how that happens with nuclear weapons, where Iran and North Korea have trashed the treaty over and over again. It doesn't have any effect. The only effect it has is in restricting the civilized, the good guys in the world. And look at, as Tucker mentioned, the Iranians are now one of the 15 principal regional countries involved in this. This is Iran that ships weapons to Hezbollah, to Hamas, to Islamic Jihad, to the bad guys in Afghanistan who are killing our soldiers every day, and who now have shiploads, plane loads of weapons which go to Syria under the pretense of being cut flowers. Does anybody have any even inkling or idea that this can have any effect on what Iran does? The treaties are useless. All they will do is stick inspectors on our planes, our trains, and our ships, and will do nothing about illegal, illicit weapons from bad guys to other bad guys in the world.
Well, Tucker, quickly, this is kind of like the perfect storm for conservatives: gun control and the United Nations.
It really is the moment when you wake up screaming in horror. And I would just say, I am convinced that President Obama, given a different political climate in which it would be possible to pass gun control, would. Does anyone doubt that?
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Right there, you are seeing that there is some pushback. However, in my opinion, and again, it is my opinion, I do not believe that this pushback will stop the global agenda. I do not believe that this pushback will stop the plan that the powers to be have and prepare to execute upon the people, especially the people of America. Ladies and gentlemen, the simple truth of the whole matter is that we need to continue to be aware and quit letting everything that we do hinge upon the things that the powers to be tell us. We need to have a sense of preparedness to be able to look out for ourselves, to be able to look out for our families, to be able to look out for our communities. This has been the simple truth. And as I always tell you, the simple things are oftentimes the most profound, but yet they're the most difficult to put into practice and to actually do. I want to thank you for joining me, and I'll be back with you real soon.